money making Mitch.
Tell me something good, babe.
Talya Parker is the founder and CEO of Dope Wives, a national brand and community group providing sisterhood, empowerment, and resources to millennial wives and wives-to-be in the pursuit of a healthy, Christ-centered marriage. Dope Wives was created shortly after Talya said "I do" on February 23, 2014, and has received national recognition from the Huffington Post and I Am Community Global. With thousands of followers and supporters from around the country, Dope Wives continues to enrich marriages and impact the lives of its growing community. What is up, world? It's your boy Michelle Valbrun, aka Money Making Mitch, and I'm here with the founder and CEO of Dope Wives, Mrs. Talya Parker. Thank you for coming, Miss Talya.
Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Well, obviously we've been friends for some time now, and I've seen this community, Dope Wives, grow and flourish to what it is today. And today I brought you in for you to share the message of Dope Wives, talk about the importance of that sisterhood, that community that you've been able to develop. And typically what I like to do with my interviewees is I create acronyms. So based on whatever the interviewee is about or what they're interested in, I create acronyms to kind of create a framework for our conversation. So today the framework is going to be wives, and we're going to start off with the word W. So the first question I have for you is who? So who is Talya Parker, and who are the Dope Wives, and why is this sisterhood so important?
Yes, sure. Well, my name is Talya Parker, and by day, I'm a cybersecurity consultant at a large consulting firm. And Dope Wives came about in 2014 when my husband and I first got married. I think the experience that we had was very untypical. We didn't have a honeymoon phase. It was immediately going into the nitty-gritty of the challenges that you face as a millennial, finding yourself, not knowing who you are, and sharing that space with someone, you know, very young. We both come from very strict Christian backgrounds, and so there's this perception of having a perfect marriage, and we didn't have anyone to talk to. So I created a community where I could be open and transparent about the challenges that we were facing without judgment. You know, even though we were a Christian couple, you go through things. And so in 2014, I had to transition out of my job. My husband, he got admitted into a doctor of chiropractic school, so he could not work a full-time job, which basically put all the finances on me in our first year, and that caused significant conflict. So I had to do a career transition. It was a whirlwind of events that took place. Long story short, you know, I ended up getting my dream job, and that kind of helped set the tone for the elevation of our relationship and our marriage, and having that community of wives who were so appreciative of our transparency about our challenges, and they just gravitated to it. They wanted more of a safe space to be themselves. And so in 2014 I started blogging, and before I knew it, it became this large community.
That's incredible. That's such a powerful story. It's so incredible how you were able to put that together and just create this community. So kind of piggybacking off of that and going into the I. So what has been the impact of Dope Wives on your personal marriage, and then also if you can think of any examples of how it's impacted maybe someone within that group. If you can think of anything off the top of your head, I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, wow, personal impact. I think it's continuous. It's continually impacting us as we go through different phases in our marriage. I think the biggest thing would probably be communication. And to that, I would tie unconditional love. So with the communication piece, you know, my husband grew up very differently. He comes from a very different background. I'm Jamaican. And then just even culturally within my family, we are very affectionate people. And that's something my husband struggled in the first couple years. And so whenever he said certain things or he did certain things, I would always take it as, oh, he doesn't care, or he's selfish, or, you know, like these are the kind of thoughts that came to mind. But then as we we grew, we learned how to communicate, we learned each other's love language, and then we realized we were not enemies. It was just misunderstanding. So my intent, regardless of how good they are, he may not receive it that way, and vice versa. So I think getting to the heart of what the intent is with our actions and our words, that has been very helpful in terms of like being a part of the Dope Wives community and the impact it has had on our marriage, because we learn through other couples different, tools and different approaches to how they deal with, miscommunication within their marriage.
Wow. So that's powerful. Language is such a powerful tool, because it really helps you understand, what's important to your significant other. They have quality time. Others like showing affection, words of affirmation. So just identifying those and be able to communicate love in that way. I think it's so powerful. So as far as, you have this thriving group, it's growing, and moving on to that V, so what's the vision for this group, maybe in the next 5, 10, maybe even 100 years, if you even thought about that?
Yeah, so my vision is quite a bit. So I think the first part is the heart of why this group is here. And like in 2014, I moved to Atlanta from Fort Lauderdale. I didn't have any family, I didn't have any friends. Everything for me changed at the same time, and it kind of felt pretty lonely. And the Dope Wives community kind of became my family away from home. And so my vision is to create that kind of experience in as many cities and in as many countries as I can, that no matter where a wife, has to go, or a couple, you can always find a community. And that's one of the things that Dope Wives is found on, is community, and we have so many all over the place. So my vision is that would continue to grow. We will continue to meet that need, maybe launching an app of some sort eventually to kind of help facilitate that level of, that magnitude, and, just to continue creating that kind of atmosphere and community for other couples who need it.
It's incredible. So with that community, and now you're thinking your vision having it being a global community, and moving on to that E, so engagement. And when you think about engagement, it could obviously mean a lot of things for Dope Wives. Obviously getting proposed, but as far as this engagement, how do you engage with that community? What are some things that you do to build that sisterhood and really just build that community?
Yeah, so one of the things obviously is an online community that we have. We have Facebook groups, we have an app that we use called GroupMe that have, maybe over 300 or 500 women, in both groups. It started off with 10 of us, so it's amazing to see how much it has grown. So that's one of the ways we stay engaged. However, there are people who need that face time in order to build genuine relationships. So we host annual events. I've had our first event was in 2016 for the wives. The second one was for the couples at Chateau & Lawn in last year in 2017. And this year we have a self-care retreat for the wives coming up. So I try to create these opportunities for us to meet together. In addition, we have our quarterly brunch community meetups in all of our locations across the country. And that consists of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Orlando, Florida. We have, of course, Atlanta, here in Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, DC, and it continues to grow. We have wives in different states who are seeking to start up their own groups. So I think that helps with the engagement. And of course, trying to do partnerships and, with experts like yourself, to speak on topics like finances or health, mental health, and, all the variety of things that you experience in a marriage. So we definitely try to keep that at the top of mind to maintain the engagement.
That's awesome. So it seems like a holistic approach you get getting people online and getting the in-person touch, and just even through communication with the phone and text messaging and possibly an app too.
Yes.
So that's incredible.
Hopefully that happens.
Okay, so, and I heard you talk about self-care within that. So there's a self-care retreat coming up.
Yes.
So segueing into that S component of wives, what's the importance of self-care? Like, why is it important? Obviously, you know, I'm married as well, so my wife comes home and she does some self-care. She gets her hair done, her nails did, you know, she looks nice externally. And I like that, but I know there's a deeper component of that as well. So could you speak a little bit on the importance of self-care and why is it important to do that as a dope wife?
It's extremely important, and one of the things that kind of trigger, you know, we've been doing a self-care challenge the entire month of April and closing it off with a 3-day self-care retreat. One of the things that triggered that was a conversation in one of our groups where the women were talking about balance in the home, you know, saying no. It's easy, I think it's easier to tell a friend, you know, family member, someone else, you know, no, whenever you feel burnt out. But how do you tell no to your spouse? How do you say no to your kids? And so it just kind of tied back into how do I find that balance in the home? And it just kind of triggered a whole list of like chain reaction. And so my husband and I actually started off our self-care challenge day one that started with speaking with your spouse. I think it starts with saying, hey, here are the things that are important to me in order for me to become the best version of myself. That could be, you know, maybe watching the kids while I'm away for a few hours on these specific days, making sure it works with your schedule, budgeting if you need to do a girls trip weekend just away to kind of feel like yourself again. Those are discussions that you need to have, and literally sit down behind a calendar and see what it's going to look like so that you can plan and then be successful in keeping, you know, those goals in mind. So I think it's extremely, extremely important to not lose yourself in a marriage, and I think it's something that as women we're such nurturers. We feel the need to be all to everyone, you know, at any given time, and so creating that space to just cater to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, feed yourself, it allows you to keep pouring back into other people, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's, you know, it's very important to stay replenished, and you do that by planning and speaking with your spouse. You're doing life together, so it's very important that you have that discussion to help you, you know. And I think even for the men, I think, you know, husbands need self-care too, but you know, it's just kind of like that ongoing dialogue and ongoing planning and revisiting of finances and budget to see how you can commit to that.
Right, so it kind of just seems like it creates an avenue to just be open and kind of share what's important, your wants and your needs, and it's ongoing.
It's not going to be a one-time thing, and sometimes it may have to change depending on where you are. You know, sometimes you have different events that happen in your life, whether it's the loss of a family member or pregnancy, you know, having kids or anything, you know, buying a house, relocating, moving. There's like all these different things that can take place. So you have to continuously have that conversation. What is self-care going to look like for me, for us, and how can we make sure that we can stick to those goals going forward?
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Great answers. So I'd like to conclude with like a lightning round. So what I'm going to do is, again, use another acronym. It's going to be DOPE this time. And then I'm going to have you talk about what's the importance of each of these words in a marriage. So the first one is going to be dating. So could you share what's the importance of dating in a marriage?
Oh my God, it is so important. And in honestly, transparent moment, my husband and I, it is something that we have to force ourselves to be intentional about, because it's hard. We are super busy people, and it's so easy to get wrapped up into a routine, and you'll keep putting it off. So we try to have date nights in some way or form, and I think a good way of looking at it is not to make it too big of a deal. Of course, you can do like the extensive stuff, but even if it's something as small as watching Netflix on the couch for just an hour or two, maybe meeting up for lunch, you know, and talking, we try to do that. We're either meeting up for lunch at least once a week, or dinner, or movies. We're doing one of, you know, and then every now and then we plan something pretty elaborate. But I think creating that block time where it's just you and your spouse is very important to keep it fresh, keep it new. There's so much that happens within the week that we don't often take time to stop and figure out what happened, and so you can miss so much, you know. So I think when you take that time weekly to speak with your spouse, engage with them, you're more in tune with what's happening with them. And let's, you know, be honest, we're all changing. The person who you married at the altar is not going to be the person you stand next to 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because life events continue to impact us and change us. And so by dating, you continue to stay engaged and fully aware with, you know, what's affecting them. You know, if your spouse is going through depression, feeling overwhelmed, you know, sometimes it's hard to have these kind of conversations if you don't take like a pause and say, okay, let's, you know, how is your day going? How are you feeling? You know, hey, what are your life goals? We have these discussions when we're dating. I think it's good to have them when you're married too. Like, I just love having stuff to look forward to. And when my husband tells me his dreams, I get so excited about it. And now I'm thinking about ways I can support him with his heart's desires. And so date nights absolutely support, you know, those kind of thought process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you talked a lot about this as well, but going to that, so openness. What's the importance of openness in a marriage?
Openness and honesty is so important. And I think it ties into communication. Sometimes we have to have very difficult discussions, and nothing is off the table with us, whether it's sexual, what my sexual needs are, or what the financial needs need, you know, what our finances need to look like, spiritually, where we need to be, the, you know, support that I may need. We have real conversation, and you need to be open. But I think the way you get to openness is understanding communication and timing. So I know, depending on the topic of the discussion, I may not want to talk to my husband when he comes through the door from a long day, you know, so it's kind of like understanding when is the best time to approach him. But it's definitely on the table, or else you won't know who you are married to if you're not open. If you have to hide your feelings or who you are from your spouse, I don't think that's healthy. You guys have to stay pretty true to who you are, or else someone is going to stay unhappy, whether it's, you know, you or them. So I think that openness is very important, to welcome that transparency, and you have to be open to receiving that, you know, because you're doing life together. So that's key for sure.
Got you. How about prayer? How important is prayer in your marriage?
Prayer is probably the number one on the list. There are times when no one can help you with what you're going through, and sometimes it's only the Word of God that will sustain you and keep you. And knowing when to pray. One of the books that we read during our book club was called The Power of a Praying Wife. They also have The Power of a Praying Husband book, and in the first chapter, she talked about, you know, basically shutting up and pray. You know, sometimes you are so bent on getting your point across. You want to win. You want to feel like, okay, I need this person to get me, understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just need to pray about it. It's not everything that you need to verbalize to your spouse. You have to pick your battles. And I think knowing when to activate prayer and faith, you know, I think it goes hand in hand, is very key. Because prayer is what gives you that comfort through those very weird seasons that you may face in your marriage. So it's definitely key.
How about that last letter, so E, empathy? How important is empathy in a marriage?
It's significantly important. You want to empathize with what your spouse is feeling, because you may not always agree with the things that they do or the things that they say or even their feelings. I've had times where my husband may come to me and say, hey, I feel this way, or I was offended by something you did, and I'm like, well, that's not what I tried to do, that wasn't my intent. And it's easy to say, well, that's your problem, that's not, I didn't, that wasn't what I was trying to do. But by empathizing with the fact that his feelings are valid, my feelings are valid, and so empathizing with that feeling, and just being humble and gracious. I think with empathy comes grace, extending grace to your spouse continually, and not wanting to win, because if your spouse hurts, you're hurting your marriage. So you always want to be in a position of catering to whatever that hurt is or that need is, so that you don't have to keep revisiting those situations. So I think empathy is definitely one of those key things as well.
Got you. All right, good deal. So last but not least, easy question, but how can people continue to stay connected with you, get in touch, get into the Dope Wives community, and just share with us any projects you have coming up, and how can folks stay connected?
Yeah, definitely. We're on Facebook, Instagram at Dope Wives. In terms of following, we always share inspirational quotes, scriptures. You can also visit our website, dopewives.com, and just click the link to subscribe. We send out quarterly newsletters on different ways to engage, different types of activities. Even if you are a wife who may be contemplating divorce or separation, we have a subgroup called Dope Wives in Waiting that caters to wives who are going through a very tough season in their marriage, and we also have an opportunity for you to subscribe there as well. So those are the various avenues in which people can reach us.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the knowledge you just shared, and just sharing about this awesome group that you have. This Dope Wives group is incredible. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.